Greetings. Today I would like to introduce you to Production Kanban Replenishment. This setup will create an Unfirm job for full requirements that automatically updates as Kanban receipts are processed for the part. It's a handy tool for companies using lean manufacturing. All an employee needs to do is enter a Kanban receipt, and the system will automatically create a Kanban job, transact and close that Kanban job, and reduce the production quantity on any unfirm job demands. So let's get started. To begin with, we want to go into our site configuration, and we're going to just make sure that we have a Kanban prefix on our site. So if I go to the production area, I can see that I already have a Kanban prefix of KB. So that means any jobs that are automatically created through a Kanban receipt, they will have a KB prefix on them. So we can see the difference on those. The other thing that we want to look at is we want to look at our site maintenance. And in here, we're going to look at the planning information. There is an auto-firm horizon and an unfirm series horizon on this tab. Now, if you have an auto-firm horizon for, say, 2 days, you want the system to auto-firm any job immediately that's due within 2 days. The first time you set up your Kanban, you're going to have a firm job rather than an unfirm job. So the difference between the two, if you do a Kanban receipt on a firm job, you'll end up getting a change suggestion to reduce the quantity of that job that was initially created to populate the on-hand inventory. But if you have it set to auto firm at 0, MRP will create an unfirm job for the full demand. And that way you see all of your demand for your components and all of your demand on your resources. And as Kanban receipts are done against that part number, it will go ahead and automatically reduce the production quantity on your unfirm job without even having to run MRP. So in this case, I do have my auto firm horizon set at 0. So when I do my initial setup on this part for the seed inventory, it will create that unfirm job that I can just keep reducing through Kanban receipts. Now, just to talk a little bit about the Kanban receipt process, these are jobs where you have a production standard already set on that part, and it's probably something you make on a regular basis. People really don't need a job traveler for it or anything, because they might have a work instruction. You can kind of think of it of the old Kanban cards that would get handed in and somebody would just make the quantity that was on that card and put it back into the shelf. So for my part setup, and I'm in the Kinetic browser, this is also available in the classic screens. So I am going to go in and bring up a part. I'm going to use this is the demo database. So I'm going to use part 00S1, which is a stocked assembly. Now, this first screen here is just the default how this part will set as you add plants to it. I really do want to go into my plants or my site's detail and make sure that this is a stocked item and it is quantity bearing. You can see here I have a minimum on hand of 500. Now, where the Kanban receipt and the setup happen are actually in the warehouse detail. So there is a replenishment type available on your warehouse, and it is impacting everything in that primary bin. It reads that primary bin and it will do it from here. The replenishment types are production, which is create a job. There's purchased, which can create an automated PO release. I have another video out there that goes through that option. And then there is a stock one. So that's where you have a material handler who's looking at a material queue and bringing parts, for example, to an assembly line. And that just is a simple stock to stock transfer. For our example, we're going to use the production Kanban entry. And then just to show you this one, it is set up for the action of production, which is expecting a job. And there's your other ones that you can do as well. So for my example, when I go in here, I have an initial quantity that I want on hand of 250. I'm not going to have any safety stock because this is something that we can just pass through the manufacturing facility as needed. My maximum hand is 500. You do not need to set the maximum on hand. In my case, the assumption is I only have enough shelf space to store up to 500 parts, so I don't want to go over my maximum. And then my replenishment Kanban quantity, that's like your lot size. So in this example, I'm going to make 50 parts at a time. That's relating back to the old Kanban cards. That would be a quantity of 50 on that card. Again, had to set a primary bin so we can trigger everything and then know where to move this when it's done. So we would start with doing the MRP for the part, and I've already done that. So I can look at my time phase. So I'm going to go up to the details and I will look at time phase. And in here you can see I've got the receipt that's pending for 500 of these parts. And that's because of the way my minimum and maximums are set. And I do have UNF as my prefix set up in that site configuration. So I can tell that this is an Unfirm job just by looking at it. So one of the other tools that's available is the Kanban monitor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my control key down and click Kanban monitor so it opens in a new tab. And I can see that my part 00S1 has got a replenishment level of 250, but the max is 500. So that's what is showing here. If I look at this request tab, this is where I had the quantity of 50. So if I take the quantity for that max of 500 divided by the 50, there's actually a number of 10 Kanban cards to make up that 500. So now let's do a Kanban receipt and see this in action. So again, just to reiterate, right here, we've got our Unfirm job of 500. I've got a Kanban monitor here of 50 each. So I'm going to open up Kanban receipt. So I've already got an employee ID associated with my name. So I'm going to put in my part number. And I'm going to say that I made all 50. You could go ahead and report scrap and nonconformance in here as well. There's two options. We can either submit and then I could move on. If I have several cards that I'm entering at one time, then it kind of processes behind the scene. For this case, I'm going to just hit update. When I hit update here, it's taking a little bit longer to figure everything out just because it's actually creating a job, doing all the transactions for me. And then it's going out to that Unfirm job and reducing the quantity, the production quantity. So I'm going to copy this job number and let's go into job entry on this one. So I'm done with that Kanban receipts, but if I go into job entry, put my job number in there. And let's look at the details on here. So right now you can see that this job is actually closed. And if I look at the activity on here, And my material activity, if I look at the material transactions, you can see that it automatically issued that quantity of the component, the 0063, to the job for me. If I go to my operation activity, again, I had a production standard in here, so it actually put in this labor quantity by me just typing it in. I didn't have to start activity and end activity. I just put in the quantity that I was putting on there. And then the manufacturing receipts, you can see here that I put 50 in this bin. So this will show in my time phase now as being on hand. So let me refresh this. So I've got 50 on hand, and you can see that it's already reduced that job for original 500. It's now reduced it by 50, so I only have 450 out there. And I can leave this out here so that purchasing can plan on the material, or if there's manufactured components, all of those jobs are still showing the demand on the system. And one last thing to go into just to see how this Kanban looks now. If I refresh this, actually, I'm going to pull the Kanban monitor up. So now it's recognizing that I have 50 on hand. I still have replenishment to do on this to make it up to that maximum. But then when I look at my requests here, you can see now that I'm down to 9 cards left instead of the original 50. Again, I went through all of that just running MRP the first time to get that Unfirm job out there so I can send the alerts to purchasing and set that shop load on the resources. No MRP was necessary between doing that Kanban receipt and getting the production job to decrease. So I hope you find the Production Kanban Inventory Replenishment another shiny tool for your toolbox. Happy planning!